At the end of the day, of the committee I'm on, so I'm on Ways and Means, there's only 5 members currently sitting on Ways and Means that were here in 2017 when we crafted the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So it's a huge lift to try to get people up to that level of this wasn't always part of how we operated. This was initiated and put through the Congress in 2017. Now the question is, so we knew there was an expiration date. It's on the bottom of the carton, but now we know we're quickly reaching that expiration date. Time is our enemy right now. And we need to be able to forge this again in ways that make sense.
The Small Business Rundown is the official podcast of the National Federation of Independent Business, the member-driven voice of small business. NFIB and our members advocate to keep America's small businesses strong and independent in Washington, D.C., all 50 states, and the nation's courts.
Welcome to the Small Business Rundown, a bi-weekly podcast with information on independent businesses' victories and challenges in Washington, D.C. and state capitals. I'm Adam Temple, NFIB Senior Vice President of Advocacy. NFIB's number one advocacy priority is working to make the 20% small business tax deduction permanent. And this tax season, that means discussing how those savings impact more than 30 million small businesses across the country. Figuring out one's small business tax deduction is simpler than you might think. Business owners can find it in their IRS Form 1040 on line 13. It's a critical deduction that empowers small business owners to invest back into their business, their employees, and their communities. But it's set to expire at the end of this year, leading to a massive tax hike for 9 out of 10 small businesses. Joining us today to share what their businesses are able to do with the tax savings from this crucial deduction are NFIB members Kellie Loudin of Ohio and Tim Corbitt of New Hampshire. We also had the opportunity to talk with U.S. Representative Mike Kellie of Pennsylvania's 16th Congressional District and a member of the U.S. House Ways and Means Committee about his perspective on small business-focused policies in Congress. First, we'll talk with Tim. Tim, thanks for taking some time to chat with us today about your experience with the small business tax deduction.
Good morning.
Tim, can you just start top level? Just tell us a little bit about your small business, how you got started, and how are things going?
So we are a large format digital printer. We print for companies actually all over the country. And the company actually has been formed 32 years ago now and continues to evolve based on the needs of our customers. We started really being able to do something nobody else can do, investing in these very large digital format printers rather than your more traditional printing where you transfer from a screen to a print.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Well, and we hear from small business owners virtually everywhere in the country about how this deduction has allowed for more investment in their business and employees, their communities, so on. How's it impacted your business specifically?
Oh, sure. And very specifically. So when it first went into effect back in 2017, the first thing we were able to do is begin to invest in some of our capital equipment that had become quite dated, literally 10-year-old equipment that allowed us to modernize and then compete really on this larger scale with larger printers. In 2020, we went from looking at our large equipment that we've been able to successfully upgrade to some of our smaller equipment, to the point where even after coming out of COVID, about 90% of our equipment had been upgraded. And then the last 2 years, we were able to now add equipment that allowed us to change our business model from design and print to design, print, and install. So now we actually go out into the field, primarily to museums and retail organizations, and actually take them end to end, from their concept all the way to the product is now designed in their facility.
Oh, that's interesting. And you kind of alluded to this, but as you know, large corporate competitors, their lowered tax rates were made permanent in the 2017 federal tax bill. Small businesses like your own, the tax relief is set to expire this year. How would you be affected if your taxes go up at the end of the year while theirs stays the same?
Oh, absolutely. So the couple of places where large competitors can really impact our business, large advertising campaigns, the ability to reach customers using a lot of marketing and advertising dollars. You can see this if you go to a trade show. They've got the big, huge, booths that they make out of houses, and we've got these little 10 by 10, cubicles in the corner. So yes, it does make it difficult if we can't continue to make the kind of investments. If you look prior to 2017, the rate at which we could invest in relationship to having this extra money available to us, we were doing it about, a third at the rate. We do every year now. It took us about every 3 years to do. So it's extremely important to us not to have to slow down.
No, that's very significant. Along those lines, do you have a message for lawmakers who are considering their options right now on whether to make this deduction permanent?
Yeah, so I look at this maybe in a slightly different way than a lot of people. Personal income tax, there is a rate, and that rate goes up based on how much you make. And the business is it's a flat tax. And boy, it sure would be nice whether we can renew exactly this 20% savings or even create a tax table that allows smaller businesses to pay less. As you know, not only does that help us invest, we don't have the advantage where we can decrease our income through the purchase and operation of a corporate jet.
Right.
And some of these large things that customers outside of us can do, not only for their convenience, but to sort of help enforce, their market momentum and things of that nature. So I guess that would be our message, whether it be this particular one or some way of putting in a tax rate schedule that's similar to the personal income rate schedule that goes from 10 to 37%. Why should we all be stuck at one number? So
sure. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. What's your message for other small business owners that are interested in getting involved in this issue? What do you think they should know?
First of all, stay involved, right? You've got to be involved in your community. It's not a one-time deal. It's not something you do this year. It's not just sign up for NFIB and hope for the best. It's participate in every opportunity you have, whether it be hosting or visiting, spend just an hour a week. Don't try to do it all because you're never going to be able to do it. But even if it's just an hour a week, getting that message out, meeting with other businesses, whether it be through Rotary clubs or commerce groups and things of that nature, certainly participating in surveys with NFIB. I've been able to spend a little bit more time with NFIB and actually participate in events. And I can tell you it is well worth the payoff. There's some days, I look up like our Friday meeting coming up. It's like, oh, wow, look at my week. Is there any way I can do it? I can assure you, put something aside, do it, and you get much more out of what you put into it.
It's good advice. And we appreciate the time that you do put in with our organization on those issues, including today, talking to us about it. And with that, is there anything else you'd like to add, Tim?
It's the small businesses and really the small business employees that you're representing. If you don't have us on top of mind, think of the 80% of your voting base that work for small businesses. And it's really across the country. New Hampshire tends to be more small business focused than some because there aren't as many large businesses. But I think the message might be when you're not sure about the small business or you may have almost forgotten this isn't a battle between big and small. It's really about the people who we employ. We employ them differently, right? I know these people. They live in my community. I know when somebody's child is sick. I know when somebody's going to college. We understand right now we're in a situation where price increases, although it's a lot of talk at the high level, it impacts these guys when they go to the grocery store. And, what is it we can do to help them? In fact, we're putting raises in place right now because I go to the grocery store and I see it when I pay more. So I think the message really to them real quickly is, remember the employees of these small businesses. They really are driving the economy.
Tim, that's a good point. You talked some about your ability to invest in equipment, big and small. Does that affect your employees as far as the ability to hire more or their quality of life and how they, what their work day-to-day life is like?
Yes, so it's both. We have raised our own internal minimum wage from $15 to $20 an hour. We're about to move it internally to $25. At the same time, we've increased the number of staff from 10 to 16 over the last couple of years. And they're trained staff now. It's not, before it was not necessarily somebody who'd gone to specialized training to learn how to install signs or run CNC machinery. So we're investing in them both professionally, financially, and really, long term. Like I say, I know they have families. It's important to me as a small business, obviously, to run a successful and profitable business. But if I don't end up with, a dozen or so employees that are equally successful and profitable in their own community, we really haven't done a whole lot. So that's super important to us.
Good point. Well, that's everything I've got, Tim.
Excellent.
Thank you. Really appreciate you.
You're most welcome.
You've got plenty of other things you could be doing, so thanks.
Not a problem.
All right, sounds good. Before we hear from our next guest, we'll take a quick break.
If you're an NFIB member, don't miss your chance to vote on the new NFIB member ballot. If you haven't already voted, please log in today to tell us your position on 5 key federal policy issues. It only takes a few minutes to fill out your ballot and shape how NFIB advocates for small business owners. Go to nfib.com/votemyballot to tell us what's important to your small business.
Welcome back. Now I want to welcome Kellie Loudin, owner of Rumor Loudin, Ohio. Kellie, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Happy to have you. Before we dive in, I'd just love for listeners to hear a little bit about your business and what you guys do.
Well, we're a heating and air conditioning company. We specialize in geothermal heating and air conditioning, which that, if you don't know much about that, it's where you take the energy from the sun and as it penetrates the ground, and then you can use the ground to heat your home. We do that with residences, new homes, commercial properties, and so on. But my father started the business back in 1975.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this October we'll start our 50th year.
Congratulations.
And so he's still living. I'm so blessed to still have him and my mother. But my husband and I are looking to retire in the next several years, but our son and our daughter are poised to be the third generation. So we have 3 locations. Our first one, my dad started in St. Clairsville, Ohio, and then we expanded to Barnesville, Ohio in 1987. And then just in 2023, we opened a branch in Moundsville, West Virginia. So we do all kinds of heating and cooling. We still do steam boilers, believe it or not. We do oil and gas and heat pumps and air conditioning and hanging wall heaters and floor tube heating and, just about everything in that realm. We don't go to the industrial level, but we do commercial and then also residential. My husband holds 6 commercial licenses in the state of Ohio. So we're, well situated for that. And we have right now about 17 employees.
Okay. That's fantastic. And Kellie, over the last several years, you've been an outspoken advocate on the 20% small business tax deduction that was passed in law as part of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I'd like to know, how have you been making wise use of the deduction dollars that have stayed with your business rather than going to the IRS?
Well, I think we're much better stewards of our money than the government, let's put it that way. But I looked up the figures, and from 2018 through 2023, we saved $170,839 in taxes. So that averages about $28,400 a year. And I feel like sometimes our overhead is this big, huge monster we have to feed, right? But to put it in perspective, what we invest in is our vans. Okay, so we put tens of thousands of miles a year on our vans, and so we need to have a plan to replace those. And here's some figures for you. So a new van, which a used van is usually worn out. Okay, it's hard to find a good used van. So a new van is $58,000. Then you have the sales tax, which is like $4,200. Then you have the ladder racks. You see vans all over the place. They've got ladder racks on them and ladders. That's another $2,000. The lettering to say who you are is like $1,200 to $1,500. And then the racking for inside, to hold all the parts and tools and refrigerant and so on, that's another $3,600. So you're at $69,000 right there.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. And then you need to stock it. So we usually buy the new vans for our service tax because they drive the most. Then we retire them to the install crews. So then when you stock it, it's not unusual to have $15,000 to $20,000 in parts and tools of the trade in that van. So now you're up to $89,000, and that's without making the first dollar.
Right.
Okay. So that's where we spend our money. Also, health insurance is a huge cost. We try to provide the best health insurance we can with the lowest deductibles, and we provide a health reimbursement account. Last year, our coverage was a $3,500 deductible, of which we paid all but $100 of the premium. And our HRA was $1,750, which helps them meet part of the deductible, right? So our overall cost for health insurance, it's like $82,000. All right, so that's for health insurance, eye, dental, and then the HRA money that we expended. Well, this year we had, unfortunately, an employee who developed cancer. Our rates went up 198%.
Yeah.
It went from $602 per person per month to $1,800. That's not sustainable for us.
Right.
I've lost so much sleep over the decision we have facing us, trying to decide what we're going to do. Our people work too hard not to be able to have a good benefits. And that helps us retain employees. So this is a huge problem. But in years past, that money helped with that too. In 50 years, last year was the first, well, I guess it would have been 49. That was the first year that we had to ask our employees to pay any of the premium. And it was $25 a week, $100 a month. And I hated to do that. What happens though is when there's tax uncertainty, it stifles growth. All right. You're not going to have growth when you don't know what's going to happen to your tax bill. You're going to need to hold on to that money. You're going to need to try and plan for that increase. A 20% increase is huge. And then a year or so ago, there was another surtax that was proposed. Our taxes could have went up 28%.
All right.
Another thing that we do as small businesses, and I don't think people realize what kind of impact it makes on the community. We supported 32 different organizations last year. We were asked for donations 7 times last week. What happens to that support for the community when a business is uncertain about their future? People don't realize the impact of small business, I think.
You kind of answered this by talking about what happens if it goes away, but from a certainty standpoint, what's the impact if Congress makes the deduction permanent?
I buy another van right now. Yep. And we have quotes and we were looking at it. We were debating and we're thinking, should we go ahead and take that plunge? And we decided not to. But if I knew that was staying, we'd probably go order another one.
So if lawmakers in Congress hear about this, what do you want them to understand about the deduction and need to make it permanent?
Well, why do the big companies deserve the break, which is permanent, right? So for the larger companies, their tax break was permanent and ours isn't. Why? Well, here's some statistics. Small businesses employ 61.6 million people. Well, almost 63% of new net jobs were created by small business since 1995. 46.4% of the private sector workforce is small businesses. So, everybody gets all excited. In Ohio, there's a new Intel chip plant being built. That creates many, many of its own challenges like infrastructure demands and real estate skyrocketing and, all kinds of other hidden things. But with a small business, we can keep adding and adding and adding. Most of those new jobs came from small businesses. So you can't discount the importance of small business. And that's why it needs to be made permanent.
Absolutely. Well, Kellie, we'll let you go here in just a second, but I know you have been to DC to talk about this issue. You've been to a number of other advocacy events. Like I said earlier, very outspoken. You're able to articulate your story for what the small business deduction means for your business and your community and employees more broadly. For small business owners interested in doing more on this that have not been as involved but want to, what's your advice to those folks?
So my recommendation is you can't just sit and complain. You can't just sit and let it happen to you. You need to communicate. Get a hold of your legislators' local offices or write letters. Find out how to write letters. There's always on different websites for the different legislators, you can figure out how to communicate. But don't just take it and let it happen to you. You have to make your voice heard.
Well said. Anything else before we go that you'd like to add?
I just hope they see the light. It was interesting. I was over at DC for just a cookout and they said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, well, we're a small business owner." And they act like they were seeing an exotic animal because they were like, "Oh, a real life business owner."
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So I think sometimes our Congress and our senators, they get inured into that government sphere and they don't really know what makes the world tick, what makes the money in the United States. And so I think they just need to step outside and meet more business people.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree. And these guys hear me say this all the time. We've got a team of lobbyists that are up on the Hill every day and they're in meetings and we can give them our research and our studies and all that stuff. And it makes an impact, obviously, or we wouldn't do it. But it's when we get members in town that their staff and the members of Congress really do just seem to get it, And so that's why it's so important when you guys are able to get up here.
So I was invited to be on the Leadership Council. I did not realize how important NFIB's work was. I mean, the scope and the breadth and everything that's done and communicated. I'm like, where would we be if it wasn't for NFIB? I mean, I don't know. I don't think it would be. I think we'd be in a lot worse shape tax-wise anyway.
That's what we're here for. Yeah. Hopefully we'll have good news for you very soon, sooner than later, so that you can plan accordingly.
Very much so.
All right. We'll let you get back to it. Thank you, Kellie. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Now let's hear an interview by NFIB's Vice President of Federal Government Relations, Jeff Brabant, with U.S. Representative Mike Kellie.
Congressman Kellie, want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us about small business policies in Congress and the 20% small business tax deduction that's set to expire at the end of the year. Appreciate you being here, Congressman.
Now, listen, NFIB is so important. And I think, Jeff, more than anything else, sometimes we don't get the message out or the message that does get out isn't accurate about what happens when you talk about some of these policies and some of these things that come to fruition. The one thing I can tell you is going back to 2017, when we started working on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, so much went into there. And what the critical part of it was, we need to let businesses keep more of their own money to invest it the way they know they're going to get a better return on it. And then the numbers are just off the chart when it comes to, well, how did that work out? And the answer is beyond anybody's wildest dream. And so we got to keep looking at the things that worked before, try to plus them up and make it going forward, make it that same policy, that same idea being in there. Too often we concentrate on things and people say, well, I don't know why you're concentrating on that. And my answer is, I don't know why we are either. Coming from a small business myself and a family that started a business in 1953 and survived the ups and downs of everything that happens, it is really critical. I think that we are sometimes a forgotten entity that is so critical when you come to the United States of America, and how it works and why it works and what can we do about the future? Protect it.
Let's talk about your family business you were talking about, started in 1953. Can you tell us a little about the business?
Yeah, I can. My mother and father actually started our business in 1953 at a little small town just outside Pittsburgh called Verona. We're in the automobile business. My dad had gone off to fight in World War II. Before he left, he was a parts picker at a Chevrolet parts warehouse in Pittsburgh. When he left to go fight, he talked to the zone manager, and he said, now, when I get back, sir, would it be possible for me to wear a white shirt someday? No Kellie's ever worn a white shirt. And Mr. Murphy said to me, okay, you go out, win this war, and come back, and you'll get to wear a white shirt. Well, my dad survived. We won the war. He came back, and Mr. Murphy didn't have a job for him right away, but he did get him a job eventually. And then in 1953, my dad's dream, my mother's dream was to have their own store. My dad liked working for Chevrolet, but his office was beside another office where the zone manager and the assistant zone manager were making a decision on a promotion. They couldn't decide on it, but my father was there and he was watching this happen. He wasn't part of the conversation. And the way they settled the issue was they flipped a coin. And my dad said, that was the final thing. I said, if it's going to be a matter of luck that I somehow have success in my life, I love working for Chevrolet, but I want to get my own Chevrolet dealership. So in 53, we started. In 57, we moved to where we are today, and that's in Butler, Pennsylvania. I bought the business from my father in 1997, which was an interesting story because I had two brothers that were working there at the same time. And my dad was very good about this. He said, I know you've been working hard and this is what you think your future's about. And I'm glad you've worked so hard. It's time for me to turn the business over. And we assumed that he meant he was just going to turn it over. He's very clear. He said, now, just want you all to know something. You have first chance to buy it. And it was like, oh, we have to buy the business? And he said, look, if I give it to you, you won't know what your mother and I went through to get there, and you'll be too casual about it and why you've worked here. And I love you guys for doing that. We have something that's very valuable here. And I just want to see if it works for you. So my youngest brother was not interested in buy it. My second brother was not interested in buy it. And so all I asked him was, oh, just tell me what you want for it. And so we made that decision that day. The key to it is, and I think the whole story comes about this, at the end of that transaction, I said to my father, okay, how do I handle this? He goes, well, first of all, I want you to know something. I'm not a bank, so don't ask me. And I said, well, who would I make the payments to? He says, find a lender that has faith in you, borrow the money, and then go ahead and get on your way. And I said, well, I didn't expect that, but I said, that's fine. And then after that, he said, now, as long as you understand, the money you've just agreed to pay me for the business gets split between your two brothers, because I don't want anybody walking out of this room today thinking dad didn't like me enough to do something to help me. So I learned very quickly about that. And I think most people, when you're in a business, not all the days aren't rosy. Sometimes they get pretty serious. And a couple of times we almost went bankrupt, and there's nothing that wakes you up more than understanding that sometimes you got your back against the wall and you have to get through it. Somehow you get through it. My dad's advice to me was, look, you look like you're having trouble sleeping. I get that. I had the same problems. Start keeping a legal pad beside your bed. You'll be exhausted. You'll fall asleep. But between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., you will wake up again because this thing is working on you. And he said, but in those moments, you will have clarity and you'll be able to not be scatterbrained. You will sit down and say, this is the highest priority of what I have to address that day. And I think all of us that are in business understand that, you have to have that clarity. You have to have a plan. You have to have the ability to think your way through problems and then not just come up with an idea in your head, put it into action. So that's a little bit of what I went through in my life. We're still in operation. My son, Brendan, is running the stores right now. We're third generation, been in business since 1953. It's something that people say, well, how do you feel? I said, well, I'm proud, not boastful pride, but just I'm really thankful for the opportunity that I had. It wasn't all easy And all of us know that. But the fact that I had the opportunity and the fact that now I have one of my sons who wants to go into the business and protect the family business, and we can only do that by understanding how business works. So I don't want to be along this too much, because everybody that's listening say, you know what, we did the same thing. I went through the same thing. And we all have those times. And there's days that we thought no matter what we did, it was going to be wrong. And there's other days we thought no matter what we did, it was going to be a success. That's what comes with it. But the other involvement is this partner we have. We have it at the local level. We have it at the state level. We have it at the federal level. And this is a government that relies on us for every single penny to run whatever it is that government is handling. And unfortunately, not enough of these people sitting in these positions have ever gone through that crisis period. They just haven't. And a lot of us have been through that. And you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your victories, by the way. People always talk about they love to win. I said, that's fine. I'm glad you love to win. How much do you hate losing? That's the driver. It's not loving winning or wanting to win. It's the fact that I do not want to lose what my family put together or what I've been trying to do for my next generation. It's the hate of losing that will drive us farther than anything in our life. And the one thing that bothers me more than anything else, I sit now with too many people making policy that have never been through that crisis situation. Unless you've walked through that fire, it's easy. So I think this will work. I think that will work. And I always ask people, that's interesting. In your business, did you do that? And they'll say, what do you mean? I said, oh, that's right. You're not in business. What the hell are you making policy for people that are in business? So I don't want to belabor the point, because it really does come down to this. And I mean this sincerely. Those of us who have chosen that way have chosen to be in business. And we do so much more than people say. It's not about self-enrichment. People talk about too many things. I really believe it's about service. You choose a business to go into, you dedicate your life to that. You dedicate not only yourself, but your next generation and the generation after that. It is absolutely the most critical aspect of our society. I've always taken back by the people I get a chance to talk to that actually do that. They're in business and your organization. We have to have somebody who pulls it all together, so we have this huge, strong voice and not just people shouting out from the outer limits about what they're going through. It's better when we're together as a team. We're joined at the hip. It's about success, and it's about being able to play the role that we need to play, not only in our country, our state, our communities, but in our families. It's absolutely crucial that we're able to pass the torch on to the next generation.
Well said, Congressman. You had a great story about the legal pad and making sure that it helps you sleep at night by putting your priorities in there. And one of the issues on your legal pad right now is likely passing the tax reconciliation bill. And NFIB's top priority is getting the 20% small business tax deduction made permanent in there. I know you're a supporter of that, so really appreciate that. So what is the status update on that? And what do you think is going to happen over the next few months here?
Yeah. And thank you for that. And I would just ask all the members, please be active members. And what I mean by that is not just signing up, but contact the person who represents you. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle they're on. I could care less about that. It's about being on the right side of the issue and understanding that we're not looking for a handout. We're not looking for a break. We're looking for an opportunity to reinvest our money the right way, that we can have more success. And by being more successful, you'll be making contributions to the incredible operation that we call America. It is the business people that fund this whole thing and the people that work for them. So it's amazing. Again, the lack of understanding of that on members that are there. I mean, until you walk through that fire, you really don't know. But I'm just encouraging all our members, please do not give up on this. If you think it's not being addressed, you need to get on the phone. You need to write letters. You need to be part of a movement, not just weighing in from time to time. I always tell people, you don't realize the jeopardy that we're in right now. And it's because we don't have enough people who've actually walked that walk looking at policy. We have too many people outside and say, well, we need to do this. We need that. Oh, they don't need that. I said, really, that's interesting. You've never done it, so please don't tell me what we need and what we don't need. What we need to do is we need to stay healthy. We need to stay profitable. We can hire people. Think of this, the number of people that are in the businesses that we're in. A lot of us have healthcare plans for them. We have pension plans for them. And if we did not have those, and they're a great expense, right? That's part of our model. Who would take care of them? Well, it would fall on the government to do that. And then I said, no, not on the government, on our taxpayers, future taxpayers. We've got to find a way to become successful so that we can ease the burden on people going into the future. There is nothing more important. There's nothing more important than profitable businesses. That's who pays taxes. That's who takes care of wage taxes. That's who takes care of property taxes. That's who takes care of income taxes. It all comes down to that. So I just encourage people, listen, you're much bigger than you think. And no matter what size you are, your voice needs to be heard. And the person that can push that initiative is you. It has to be you. please stay on course. Make sure your compass is pointing true north. Forget about what party you belong to. Think about what policy we need to have. At that point, then we'll start to make good decisions. To me, it's not a political issue. It's a survival issue. And this is for next generations. We have to preserve for the next generation what we're experiencing or what we have experienced already. But it all comes down to successful business.
Thank you, Congressman. Do you think you're going to get this big tax bill done before the end of the year?
I don't think we have a choice. We have to get this done. And I think that right now, the biggest challenge we have is internally, because we have different factions going in different directions on it. At the end of the day, the committee I'm on, so I'm on Ways and Means, there's only 5 members currently sitting on Ways and Means that were here in 2017 when we crafted the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So it's a huge lift to try to get people up to that level of this wasn't always part of how we operated. This was initiated and put through the Congress in 2017. Now the question is, so we knew there was an expiration date. It's on the bottom of the carton, but now we know we're quickly reaching that expiration date. Time is our enemy right now, and we need to be able to forge this again in ways that make sense. It's going to be a huge effort, but I can tell you right now, our chairman, Jason Smith of Ways and Means, and the speaker, and certainly there's nobody that understands business better than the person sitting in the White House right now. He hasn't said, hey, if you get it done, fine. If you don't get it done, that's fine too. No. It's like, I need it now. The country needs it now. Let's put your shoulder to the wheel and let's get it done. And please, don't worry about any nicks or abrasions you get along the way. Shake it off. Anybody can play when they're healthy. It's playing when you're hurt that counts right now. We got to get more people who look about what do we have to do to win this, because it's the only thing we can do to survive.
Are there any other policies or priorities that you think small business owners should be aware that you're working on right now?
You know what? There's so much, and one of the great attributes is being on Ways and Means is that there are so many levels where you have jurisdiction over. So whether it's trade, whether it's tax, whether it's healthcare, whether it's Social Security, these are all things that are very intimate to the people that we represent. And each one of those is going to have its own challenges. But I think if we just don't look in the mirror, look someplace else, and the people because we all represent about 750,000 people, look at those people that you represent and say, am I doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons? And if you can do that, then the politics becomes an aside, which is hard to do today, as you know. But if you can, truly, if you can set your compass true north, we can get there. But there's so much of it. It doesn't matter. The trade is a big issue right now. We all know that because of the tariff situation. Healthcare is a huge issue right now as we go forward. Everything that I look at right now where we have jurisdiction, the tax policy is the one that everybody's talking about right now. But healthcare, trade, Social Security, oversight, which we also have a challenge of doing. They're all important, but right now we've got to get this piece done. The Tax Cuts Jobs Act, the second generation of Tax Cuts Jobs Act that allow people to move forward, be successful, reinvest their own money. And then we're talking about 199, say, you should be able to invest your own money the way you think it should be done. I hear people tell me all the time, you're always in favor of the rich. I said, no, that's not so much that I'm in favor of the rich. The one thing I know is only people who are successful pay taxes. I'm in favor of us having tax revenue, but not putting a choker hold on people that keeps them from doing something that's going to enhance their business, make it more successful, make it more profitable. We'll pay more taxes. We'll have more fringe benefits. And we'll be able to serve the public better. I don't want anything that's totally government run. There are 37 trillion in the red right now. I would never go to the government for any advice on how to run a business unless I was trying to figure out how I wanted to fail and fail very quickly. We're going to fix this. We're going to get it done. It'll be painful at moments. It'll take some help from the White House. The president's very influential. We have to work within the confines of what we're trying to work with, because this isn't about Trump. This is about the future of our kids and our grandkids. We've got to get this done.
Well, Congressman, it's been great to hear from a small business owner who's also a member of Congress. Before we wrap it up, and appreciate being so generous with your time, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that one of the biggest challenges we have, every single citizen needs to understand that he or she has a role to play in the success of America. And don't rely on 435 people in the House of Representatives or 100 people in the Senate to be doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. Stay engaged. Stay engaged. The other thing is, which I find really difficult, education is one of the building blocks to any successful society. We need to be better educated in the way our government works. Too often I have people approach me with ideas and say, well, you need to do this, or you need to do that. And say, I understand it. And you're talking about enforcement. Say, well, you're in the government. I said, no, I'm in the legislative body. The enforcement comes through the executive branch, and the judicial then handles any kind of outcroppings from that. I don't know why. It's just so foreign to people. They say, oh, I didn't know that. I said, absolutely, absolutely. It has to go through the House, it has to go through the Senate, it has to come back then, has to then go down to the White House, get signed into law. But once it's signed into law, the executive branch is in charge of all those agencies. It is their duty, their sworn duty to enforce our laws. And I think sometimes I've watched over the last couple of years this idea that we can turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to what it is that we're not doing, and we're defying and reneging on the pledge that we took. I just think that's appalling. But again, a highly educated electorate is the key to us being able to get through these things. So what you're doing, you know how critical it is. I mean, most of the people I know that are in business, they work half days, and people tell me, no, you mean 4 hours? I said, no, 12 is a half a day, 7 days a week. And while they may not be on the floor of their business, it's in their head, it's in their heart, and it's in the future of the next generation. So I think we all ought to just start thinking red, white, and blue. And let's start thinking about we are in the greatest challenge we've ever faced as a nation, at least at this point in our history, and we have to get through it, and we have to win.
Well, thank you, Congressman. Very well put. And I know you have a really busy schedule, so we'll let you get back to it. Thanks again.
Now, listen, you guys are doing wonderful work. Please keep it up. And anytime, let me know, please.
Thank you.
Today's show notes include links that better explain how to find line 13 on your IRS Form 1040. We'll also include information broken down by all 50 states on how the tax rate for small businesses compares to those of large corporate competitors. And as always, how to easily send a message to your elected officials on this issue. And now I want to thank you, the listeners, for joining us on today's Small Business Rundown. We'll be back every 2 weeks bringing you news and analysis from Washington, D.C. and state capitals, so that you, whether you're a business owner or a supporter of one, can continue to blaze a trail.
The Small Business Rundown is brought to you by NFIB, the voice of small business. You can find us at nfib.com and on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.